This is how to create and design a killer email pop-up form to blow up your brand and explode your email list growth. Because when this is done right, it has the potential to bring you in thousands and thousands of new email subscribers literally every month. Just like this brand, which we helped grow from 16,000 to 50,000 email subscribers and generate an extra $200,000 per month. And this brand right here, we have gotten them 105,000 new email subscribers. And these email subscribers have turned into $924,000 in revenue. With a submission rate of 28%, I can guarantee that's better than what your current form is doing. But not after you watch this video. So I'm gonna be giving you the full tutorial of how you can do the same thing for your brand inside of whatever email platform that you want. We'll cover the types of pop-ups that you can use, how to write copy that actually converts, and how to design something that actually stands out that people want to opt into without harming your website conversion rates. Now, before we start building anything, we need to pick the right type of email pop-up. And choosing the right style and method depends on a few different factors. So if you're trying to really aggressively grow your list, you could be focused on more quantity into your email list rather than quality, compared to somebody who's really focused on getting customer data and lots of engagement from the people who are opting in. And the same goes for your product line. If a brand has lots of different SKUs and different products, they might not be able to use something as simple as a brand that offers just one product. So knowing the answers to these questions are going to allow you to choose the best type of form for your brand. Now, there are 4 different types of pop-up forms that we typically will like to run. So let's break these all down. Now, first we have the classic, which is what most brands do, where it's just, hey, take X% discount on your order, give us your email address. Now, it's super easy to execute and it can work better in some scenarios, but I don't see it work better too often compared to the other form styles that I'm going to show you. This is more of a pop-up form from the past. And I guess if you're into more of the classics and keeping things simple, then yes, this can work for you. But the cons are people are going to unengage at a very high rate because they're just so used to seeing this. And another thing is you're not getting any data from the customer. And in one of these other forms, I'm going to show you how you can actually get data from customers while you're getting their email address. But this is the classic. You ask for the email and then maybe you ask for SMS next. And I highly recommend make sure that you separate your steps from email to SMS. If we put both on the same, it's really going to impact our conversion rates because someone will see this form, they'll see email and SMS, and they're like, oh my gosh, this is so much work, I'm not going to opt in. So always separate these out. Now, this next type of form is a little bit different, and it might surprise you a little bit. It's called the micro commit form. It is a 2-part process where you ask people, do you want 10% off? And if somebody says yes, then we ask them for their email address. If they say no, they just close the form. And here's what this will look like. Rather than asking for someone's email right off the bat, we're asking them, yo, do you want 10% off your order? Or whatever incentive you're giving. And you just make it super clear for them, like, yeah, I want 10% off. And people will engage with this first step at a very, very high rate. And then it'll trigger the next step, which we can see right here. After submitting, it's going to show the next step where we then just goes to the classic form where we ask for the email address. Now, I know what you're thinking. How does adding an extra step improve conversion rates? Like we're asking more out of the customer. Well, this plays into a psychological tendency in humans called commitment bias. You see, so many people are going to fill out this question because it just seems so low barrier to entry. It's like, do I want this discount? Yes. Let me just click this button and get this discount. And we then ask them for the email. Now, commitment bias in humans says once somebody starts doing something, they're much more likely to follow through with that action. So they already answered this question, and once the email pops up, their brain is thinking, I already started, like, okay, fine, might as well, here's my email address, whatever. And then we ask for their SMS, and it's like, oh my goodness, well, I've already done this much work. I don't want to lose out on 10% off now. I already answered this question, gave them my email address, fine, I'll give you my phone number. And so you're kind of just like leading them on little bit by little bit. And I'd say 75% of the A/B tests that I do, this one beats out the classic. I would probably say even a little bit more towards like 80 to 85%. But the problem here is you're still not getting any customer data. We're just saying if they're interested in a discount or they're not interested in a discount. But what if we could take this a step further and get customers to tell us why they're actually shopping with us or about their preferences or what products they may be interested in? Which brings us to our next form style, which is the quiz pop-up form, which in 2026 is the best performing pop-up form that you can run for your brand. So we take a look at this, and again, we're not asking for someone's email address right off the bat. We're asking them a question. First, we're saying, hey, you have this discount. So I'm like, oh my goodness. And then we're asking, tell us what you're shopping for. And then it's men, women, all styles. Or no thanks, I pay full price. And this is going to play into personalization bias in humans. Humans are much more likely to interact with something and then also buy from a store if they have custom tailored solutions for them. And so somebody answers this question. It seems low barrier to entry, 10% off. All I have to do is answer this question and then boom, then we ask them for the email address. And this plays into commitment bias in humans next. Once you start doing something, you're much more likely to follow through. Somebody's brain is like, oh my goodness, I already answered this question. Might as well enter my email address. Fine, I'll do it. And then we ask them for SMS and they're like, oh, I've already done this much work. I don't want to lose out on the discount now. And so they just keep on answering. answering. But now what we can also do is, based on somebody's answers, we can tag them with a profile property saying, hey, this profile is interested in male clothing, or this profile is interested in women, or this profile is interested in all styles. And then we can customize the emails that we send them based on their answers. Pretty sweet. And I'll show you how to set this up in a minute, but this consistently is the best form style that we are seeing work in 2026. So if we go to Alia right here, which is my favorite pop-up platform, they have all sorts of different examples right here. If you want them to do your pop-ups, you can get a free trial. Just say that Max sent you a 30-day free trial. But you can see, like, ask, like, how comfy are you trying to get, like, something like super low barrier to entry. You could say, are you shopping for myself or someone else? You could ask, like, what are you shopping for today? Select your skin concern, and so you can tie it into pain points. That stuff you can absolutely do. It gets people to engage, gets them to convert at a higher rate, and you get customer data that you can use. Now, the last sort of form type that you can do is you can do a spin to win right here, which is exactly how it sounds. You spin a wheel and the customer gets a discount. These actually work really, really well, usually better than just like the classic. The downside with the spin to win is it can be a little bit tacky, so you might hurt your brand a little bit. But I've seen it work well. It engages with the customers pretty well. And again, I'll show you how you can set this up. So that's the first pillar, understanding your different pop-up form types. But there are still other things that we have to cover. One of them is going to be your offer. We need to nail down the offer, and we also need to nail down the copy that we're using, because getting somebody to hand over information like their email and phone number when they know that you're going to then drill them with marketing information takes more than just asking for it and asking for charity. But having a strong offer, or having an offer that's framed as very strong, can make it so each step feels like a no-brainer. But what makes a good offer? Well, I can tell you it's not exclusive updates or early access. Nobody cares about that, because in 2026, that's literally the bare minimum when it comes to someone signing up for your email list. When it comes to actual revenue and profit, some sort of discount or free gift is going to work the best. And in the long run, giving a little bit up for somebody's email address is worth giving up this offer, as long as you're not giving up like 80% off. So I recommend doing some sort of variation of a % off, dollar off, mystery discount, or a free gift. Pretty standard, but what you can do is get strategic with how you present it. For example, if you have an average order value of above $100, I recommend using some sort of dollar off discount. So let's think about it. If you have a $500 AOV in your store, meaning on average somebody's spending $500 with you, and let's say your pop-up form offered 10% off, well, you'd be giving out on average $50 off. And if somebody places a $1,000 order, you're giving 10% off of that, which is $100. So you're giving up more on these big orders. And 10% off does not sound very good. But what if you told people, hey, you want $50 for your email address? That sounds a lot better than 10% off. So that's why if you have an average order value of above $100, you should do some sort of dollar off. Don't say 10% off, give somebody $50 off. Because then if somebody spends $1,000 or $2,000, you're not giving up even more on margins. It's just the flat $50. So you could also set the minimum of, hey, you have to spend at least $500 with us to claim this discount. So you save on margins and it sounds better, and you're gonna get a lot more people opting into your pop-up form, because saying, here's a $50 bill works better than 10% off. And vice versa, if you have a $50 AOV and you tell somebody, hey, here's a $5 bill versus 10% off, typically 10% off performs better. But I highly recommend you try this out and test it on your own. Very underrated, but you can also do some sort of free gift. And free gifts often work really, really well. Here's an example of a free gift offer pop-up form. It says, hey, you've got a free $29 gift. And then you can see that this is a quiz pop-up right here. Now they framed this as a $29 gift, but in reality, this gift is a small jewelry travel size holder. So it's just this little bag that you can put jewelry in. And it probably costs them $2 to $3 to produce, but they framed it as a $29 gift. And so you're like, oh my gosh, I get a $29 gift? Like, absolutely. You answer this and then it's claim your free gift, and then it's the quiz sort of pop-up from before. So just by changing their offer and framing it as something that is super valuable, people are gonna respond at a high rate, and they're gonna be able to keep their margins, because it only costs them $2 to $3 to produce this. Brilliant. So if you have an opportunity to do something like this, I would highly recommend testing this out and seeing if it converts better. Now the thing is, actually building and optimizing this inside of Klaviyo or whatever platform you're doing is going to take a lot of time. Now, it's going to be overwhelming if you've never done it before, and you're probably just going to set up an A/B test and then forget about it in a couple weeks. You know, you got to set up all the logic, write the copy, know what to do, know what to test, monitor them, and actually look at the advanced numbers like AOV, LTV, all that good stuff. And even after some of that, a lot of people still end up with 3 to 5% opt-in rates when we want to be 10% plus. And that's the difference between you doubling your email list growth and your email revenue. So if you don't want to waste time spending forms that don't actually convert, you can book a call with us using the link below. We've worked with over 279-figure e-commerce brands to build and optimize these forms, as well as manage their whole email and SMS ecosystems. So if you want to see if we can help you can book a call below or go into our website at wellcopy.net. Either Either way, once you figure that out, we have to convince people to take action. And that's where the copy comes in. So let's go through actually creating one of these quiz forms. So I'm just gonna be inside of Klaviyo, but you can do this in most platforms. Klaviyo is just what most brands are on. It's what we use for most of our brands. But if you go just into the sign up form section of whatever platform, you can create form. And inside of Klaviyo, I'll show you my favorite template that I like to start out with. I like to start off with this one. It's super simple, nice and easy. I'm just gonna label this as test and connect it to just newsletter right here. And then phone number list, whatever you wanna do. And then it's gonna create our form. Now, personally, what I like to do is I like to completely split up my forms based on device, because the mobile form has to be completely different to our desktop form. So we're gonna separate these two. So in order to do that, I'm gonna go to targeting, and then as far as display, we are going to show on mobile only, because we're just gonna do a mobile form right now. So we have this showing on mobile only. And then as far as targeting, what I would recommend is I highly recommend just doing a plain time delay of 4 to 8 seconds. Typically in most cases, I'm doing a 6-second delay. The reason we don't wanna fire a form right off the bat is the customer hasn't even seen your products, and so they might not be interested at all. And that's gonna hurt the customer experience a bit. But if we wait something super long, like we wait 30 seconds, 40 seconds, how much of your site traffic is really on your page for 40 seconds? Not a lot of people. People will fall off. And so we wanna have an opportunity to get our form to fire. So typically that 4 to 8 second mark is my favorite to go off of. And you might be asking, like, what about doing something like exit intent? Exit intent pop-ups work good on desktop, but for mobile, they misfire a lot and I'm not a fan of them. So I like to just do our time delay. All right, now that we've gone through that, let's actually create our form. Now, do you wanna know the key to getting the most amount of opt-ins with your copy on your pop-up form? It is cut as much copy as possible. So that is what we are gonna do right off the bat. Save on your first order when you get email only offers. That is unnecessary. People know what they're doing when they sign up. We don't need this. We don't need the how would you like to hear from us. Every little piece that we add is going to increase the odds that somebody churns off of this form. So boom, we have deleted pretty much everything. The next thing that I want to address is we have email opt-in and then SMS opt-in right here. And what stands out to me is the CTA, because if somebody sees limited time 10% off and they see a button that says continue implies that there's going to be more that the person has to do. So instead, we want it to make it seem like, hey, you will claim your discount right now if you click this button. So you have 10% off and then you have claim now. SMS only deals, who's really doing that? And it's really not that common. So instead, what we want to do is we want to delete all the copy that we can, and then we're going to change the wording to activate your discount by signing up to SMS. And I may adjust that in a second, but kind of like in theory, in summary, that's kind of what it is. And the same sort of thing, like with the copy right here, we want this to be claim discount. And so if someone's like, okay, boom, just click this button and I claim it. And in most cases, I like to just do a phone number input. So I'm just going to go down here and then drag in our phone section. It's automatically going to add the disclosures that we need because we need to include this when somebody opts in. I just like to make this really small, and we're going to make it like this, and we are still compliant. Okay, so we kind of have just like the skeleton of this built out. Now let's get a little bit more advanced and nuanced. So I'm going to add the quiz step here before in a second, but I'm going to give you a little bit of insider copywriting tricks right here. On our pop-up form, we've really tested different copy that you can use to make your pop-up convert the best. Limited time 10% off just doesn't feel custom to a person. It's like, oh, anybody can get this. It's a limited time offer. It's available for everyone. But what we found is if you use the wording you've got and then whatever your discount is. So let's say you've got, and then we'll put 10% off right here. Now saying you've got does a couple things. It speaks directly to the person and it feels custom, like I have this discount. What did I do to earn this? And also by saying I have this discount, you've got it, like I have it, plays into loss aversion, because if I close out of this form, I lose that discount. So it's like I'm giving something up. So psychologically, it just works better. So I always highly recommend using wording like this, or at least right now, this is what's working. I'm giving you all the juicy stuff, okay? So we use this wording like you've got 10% off, and then I just bolded this right here. Maybe I'll want to adjust the sizing a little bit to make the offer the biggest part of the form. Maybe I'll increase the sizes here. You've got 10% off right here. Boom. Now I'm also going to add an image. I'm going to put my logo in here. Maybe I'll do something like this, and then I can adjust the width. So maybe it's not so freaking massive. No, not like that. And then boom, pretty solid. The next thing I want to do setup wise is a little bit gray hat. The problem with pop-up forms in 2026 is that every single time somebody goes to a website, they're pretty much seeing a pop-up form. And every pop-up form has this X in the top right corner. And so when people see pop-up forms, their thumb is already moving to the top right corner. They don't even look at the form. form. But what if we remove this X? So if we remove this X, what we can do is we can change the hex, the transparency, to nothing, so that now it's technically there, but you can't see it. Now, obviously we're gonna get a lot more opt-ins if we don't give people an option, but that's gonna be bad for website conversion rates. We need to give people an option. So all that we're gonna do is we are going to move the close button. Instead of up here in the corner, we're gonna put it down here. So what we can do to do that is we can add a block, and then we're gonna add a button. And in this button, the action is going to be close form, while the action for this button is submit form, and it shows to next step. And now we have this button right here. And then what we can do here is we can say something like no thanks. But if you want to be even more aggressive, you can say no thanks, I'll pay at full price. Now you're really setting people up here because it's like, do I want 10% off or do I want to pay at full price? You're making them say, no thanks, I'll pay at full price. Some people can think it's aggressive, but you can change it if you want, but I like to do it in every chance that I can because it always converts better. And so we also, it's just like kind of distracting if we have two buttons here. So what I like to do as well is I'm gonna make the button transparent, and then I'll make the text like black right here. And then I'll use the same font as well, so it matches right here. And so boom, we have this, no thanks, I'll pay at full price. Now we're forcing people to answer this question. Now I'm gonna have to add this. Now boom, we're all set. This is the email step, and this is optimized. Notice how there's nothing really crazy here. It's super bare bones and simple. But now let's add that sort of quiz step, which I talked about earlier. Now the easiest way to do this, in my opinion, this is why I wanted to get this styling done here, is you can just go up here and then we can clone, and then I'm gonna put this as quiz. We clone that step, and then we can drag this to be the first option. So it's gonna go here, and then here, and then here. Okay, so let's adjust the quiz. So in order to get the quiz, we don't wanna ask for email right off the bat. So we're gonna delete this email block, and then we need to give our options right here. So again, if you go to aliapopups.com, we can look at like all these examples right here. Now what I recommend, what I see be the best for results, is using as little possible answers rather than have like, I don't love this, just because there's so many options, it'll overwhelm the customer and they're much more likely to close out of that form. So for me, let's say that I am a clothing brand or a health brand and I have men's products versus women's products. Probably helpful if we find out what gender that person is. And it's also super easy for someone to answer. You just have two options. Well, you can have unlimited today, but we'll just do men, woman, and then all. And so all that we need to do is we just need to bring in buttons into the equation. So all that we're gonna do is we are going to add blocks right here. I'll drag one in, I will drag another in right here, and then we can put in our answers. All that we do here is we wanna change this action to submit form, and then after submit, show next step. And then we can change this to men's, we can change this to women's, and then we can change this to all styles. Now it's a little bit confusing right now because we're not telling people like what's going on here. So we also need to add a text block to tell people to claim your discount, tell us what you're shopping for. And that's usually the wording that we see work the best. It's as little words as possible. So we can see this right here, to claim your discount, tell us what you're shopping for. Then we can adjust sort of the styles. It's as little words as possible, but it confirms that if you want this discount, you need to answer this question. And here I am, I'm just adjusting some of the styling on this, and we can see that it's a little bit cramped up here. And so we can add padding. So I'm gonna add some padding up at the top, so it's not just so crammed up there. So boom, we have, you've got 10% off to claim your discount, tell us what you're shopping for. Now we can adjust the stylings to be the same as this right here. So I'm just gonna go in, and it looks like the font is 18, the button is this color, and it's a height of 54. So I'm going to adjust these, and I will be right back. And then boom, look at us right here. We have men's, women's, all styles, super clean. And then the no thanks, I'll pay full price. That seems a little bit tight down here. So I'm going to add even more padding down at the bottom, and then boom, we are looking pretty good. And it looks like we have rounded corners on this one, but not on the others. So let me add these. And if we want, we could make the buttons bigger, but I think this is overall okay. So boom, that's it. Somebody answers one of these questions, then it's gonna bring them to this next step. Now you're probably wondering, okay, well, how do I actually segment people based on their answers? Well, here's how we do it. We can see right here, we can have submit hidden fields. And so right here inside of Klaviyo, what we can do is we can tag people with a property. So what we're gonna wanna do here is we're gonna wanna add a property. Now you can create a property right here for what you want. So what we can do right here is we can do gender interest. We can name that as the profile property, and then click create. And what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to enter a value. So I'm going to say men's right here. And that's what I've selected for this button. And then what we're going to do is we're gonna add this for the rest too. Now a little nuance here is technically this property isn't created until somebody submits it. So all you want to do is you need to make sure that the wording wording that you put for the profile property is the same for all of them, but it's going to populate okay once people are submitting this. So you can see that I'm just doing gender, interest right here, creating it and putting the answers that align with the form. So then anybody who clicks this button, they're getting marked with that property. And then you can create a segment in Klaviyo and split based on whatever the answer was. So here we are right here. Somebody sees this pop up. You've got 10% off. The 10% is the biggest part of the form. It is bold. We use the you've got. We say you have to answer this question. We engage with them first and then we ask them for their email. It's just you've got this. Claim now. No thanks. I'll pay full price. And then we have the SMS right here. So let me add some of the styling. All right, here we go. So we're all set here. I have this logo. I'm going to adjust this text as well to say no thanks, I'll pay at full price. I like to kind of use this for text so people will really sign up to text, but you could change it to something like no thanks, just email is fine, or no thanks, I don't want texts, and people will still get the discount. And so we could do this. Usually the wording that I like to do for SMS is I'd say something like finish signing up, because somebody like it's then shows that they're like still in the process. So I do something like finish signing up with text, and usually the wording of activate is what works the best for getting people to follow through with SMS. So I'm gonna say finish signing up with text to activate your discount. And honestly, maybe I just want to do 10% off to activate your 10% off rather than saying discount, just so they're reminded. And we can adjust the sizing if we want to make sure that it's on like one line. And then right here, that's a bit small, but overall I think it's okay. Somebody enters their phone number, they click this button, they get their discount, and then boom, we are all set. We have this person entering into the SMS subscribers, and then what it'll do is we have this last step where we can have a success page. And so we can say something like welcome in, and it's up to you on if you want to show somebody the discount right here. Typically we're going to tell people to check their device, check their email, because then we can get engagement rates on those first messages, which is going to help with our deliverability and our reputation. So I usually just like this to be a close form, and then I'll say something like keep shopping right here, and then we are done and the form is set up and optimized. Here's what we have here. You've got 10% off. You go to the email, you go to SMS, and then it's a success page. You can add a teaser as well, which is going to be if somebody closes out of the form, you can say 10% off right here, and this will fire. It'll show like after you can set all these settings. Typically I like to do teaser shows something like X amount of time, but I like to do after the form is closed. Right here, after someone closes, it's usually not the best on mobile. Oftentimes I won't even have a teaser. You can just delete it, but desktop I usually like to have it. That's really it right there. And the biggest thing I can recommend with your pop-up forms is to test. So the first A/B test that I would do right here is I would do an offer test. So I would do 10% off, maybe something like a mystery discount, because for some reason you give somebody some sort of mystery and they will opt in at a higher rate just because they need to know what this mystery is. So I can go to like mystery discount, and all we have to do for this variation is I'm gonna say you've got a mystery discount. I'm gonna adjust the sizing for this to be smaller so it's on one line. I don't know, I just always like to make sure that something is on one line. So we can do this, and then we just adjust the wording to mystery discount throughout, mystery discount right here, and then right here I would just change the wording to something like discount, and then boom, we're all set. We can set up this A/B test. We just go to continue to test settings, and then we submit this A/B test and we are good to go. I would do a manual, and then I would publish this A/B test right here. Boom, that's it. You could even set up a test on the different form types that we were doing before. So say I wanted to test doing the quiz layout versus doing something like going straight to email. So I would say straight to email mystery. And then what I could do here is I just go into edit. All I'm going to do is I'm going to delete that first step, which has the quiz question. And so if we go in, we can just delete this quiz question right here, and it just goes straight to you've got a mystery discount, SMS, and then success. Perfect. And then we can submit this A/B test. Boom. It's that easy. To save time, I'm not going to go through desktop one by one, but I'm just going to show you we literally do the same sort of setup right here. We just have an image on the right side, which if you use that same template, which I showed you inside of Klaviyo, it's going to have this for you for desktop. You're going to change the targeting to be desktop only. You want to turn off that little setting right here. We have the same sort of setup. It's the same. You've got this discount to claim. Tell us what you're shopping for. You have these buttons. thanks right here, and then the no thanks, I'll pay at full price. We give them the email address. You can change the wording if you want. You can test it. You have the SMS, and then a success right here. It's the same sort of stuff. If you want to look at like the sizing, this is the sizing that's currently on this form. It's just typically what we do. You can copy it if you want. There's all the padding, whatever, same sort of strategies. Now, that's exactly how to build a high converting pop-up form inside of Klaviyo. But of course, getting subscribers is just the first step of generating 30 to 50% of your total store revenue from email, which our brands do. Because now you actually have to send out the emails and get them to buy. And right after someone signs up to your list is when you have the highest chance of turning someone into the customer. But this is where most brands mess up. So if you want to see the exact emails and strategy we use to get these fresh email signups to actually buy, and how we help make a client $500,000 a month from email, watch this next video and I will see you there. Thank you for watching this video. Catch you in the next one.